Chapter 9, User Domain Policy. Learning objective and key concepts. The learning objective in this case is you need to describe different information system security policies. And then the key concepts are reasons for governing users with policies, regular and privileged users, acceptable use policy or AUP, and privileged level access agreement PAA, and security awareness policy SAP, and differences between public and private user domain policies. The weakest link in the information security chain, page 1 of 2. Security experts consider people the weakest link in the security system. Let's look at some of those weaknesses. Social engineering. People can be manipulated. Social engineering occurs when you manipulate or trick a person into weakening the security of an organization. Social engineering comes in many ways. One form is simply having an adversary befriend an employee. The more intimate the relationship, the more likely the employee may reveal knowledge that can be used to compromise security. Another method is pretending to be from the IT department. This is sometimes called pretexting. An adversary might call an employee and convince him or her to reveal sensitive information. For example, a hacker asks an employee to enter data the hacker knows won't work. The hacker then simply asks for the employee's ID and password to give it a try. Hackers who use pretexting are usually highly skilled in manipulating people. They can present simple or elaborate stories that seem compelling to an unsuspecting employee. Human mistakes often occur and lead to security breaches, of course. People who use computers have different skill levels, thus have different perceptions on information security. Weakest link in the information security chain, page 2. One of the most significant threats come from within an organization from an insider. Insiders are your most dangerous because they know the system. They know the organization, and quite frankly, they can have more motivation. They could be disgruntled or be about to be fired or whatever. Applications have weaknesses that are not known. These weaknesses can be exploited by users, either knowingly or unknowingly. Security awareness training can remove this weakest link in the security chain. 7 types of users. The user name of one of the 7 domains of a typical IT infrastructure consists of a variety of users. Each user type has unique access needs. As the different types of the users in the domain grow, so does the security complexity. At a minimum, each type of user has unique business needs and thus requires unique rights to access certain information. Within each of these major types of users, the rights are further refined into subtypes. Each subtype might be further broken up, and so on. Let's look at the 7 types. First is employees, salaried or hourly staff members of the organization. Systems administrators, employees who work in the IT department to provide technical support to the systems. Security personnel, individuals responsible for designing and implementing a security program within an organization. Contractors, temporary workers who can be assigned to any role. Contractors are directly managed by the company in the same manner as employees. Vendors, these are outside companies or individuals working for such companies, hired to provide ongoing services to the organization, such as building cleaning. Unlike contractors, vendor employees are directly managed by the vendor company to perform specific services or the organization's network. Guest and general public and control partners. Obviously, the guest and general public is just anybody basically off the street that has been invited in, and the control partners could be different stakeholders. Thank you. Types of users. Figure 9-1 is an example of types and subtypes of users. You can build better security policies and controls by understanding user needs. There is no fixed number of user types possible on a network. For example, a salaried employee may be a full-time experienced professional or a part-time college student. Depending on the business, though, there may be different sets of security issues associated with those two types of employees. To illustrate common user needs, this chapter focuses on 7 basic user types that we just went over previously. A number of variations to the firewall ID process are illustrated in this figure 9-2. For example, requiring a help desk manager to approve a ticket may be an optional control that some organizations feel is unnecessary. Another common variation is to allow an administrator to open a trouble ticket, make a repair, and then close a trouble ticket. This self-service capability may be important when an administrator wants to track unusual events. For example, suppose a database administrator has a very stable environment with a few outages and problems. To control the risk, the DBA's normal access may not include unlimited access to the database. However, when the database system administrator identifies a problem, he or she may choose to use the firewall ID process to gain the additional access quickly to repair the database and note the problem. Example of a DMZ application connecting to BlackN server. Figure 9-3 depicts these layers of controls at the DMZ application, network, and database layers. In this specific website example, you can see that the application, network, and database would be well protected. It's not so easy in the real world. In the real world, applications share website space and BlackN database servers. A breach in one application can lead to another breach in another. Not all applications effectively test and limit what a user can enter. An application's internal controls can be sound, but the application becomes compromised by a vulnerability in the operating system. Security policies outline the types of controls and hardening methods used to protect a server in the DMZ. Contingency and system accounts. Under contingent accounts, you need unlimited rights to install, configure, repair, and recover networks and applications, and to restore data. Credentials are prime targets for hackers. IDs are not assigned to individuals until a disaster recovery event is declared. Then you have systems accounts. They need elevated privileges to start, stop, and manage system services. Accounts can be interactive or non-interactive. System accounts are also referred to as service accounts. Why govern users and policies? Organizations want a single view of risk. Decision-making becomes easier, as does talking with regulators or shareholders. Security policies offer a common way to view and control risk. In addition, regulations require the implementation of security policies. A few examples include the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, after we had several debacles with major corporations. What the slide is talking about here is users require different access. So the security policies have to be different and set up different access for different people based on their jobs and their responsibilities. Users require information from different systems, and data has different security controls. Why govern users and policies? As I stated just in the previous one, regulations require the implementation of security policies. And in the early 2000s, you had Enron and several different major organizations like European Data Protection Directive that came about because of a breach. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability, HIPAA, came about because of that. And the Sarbanes-Oxley Act also. So these were the early 2000s was like the Wild West for some of these major corporations, and some people were actually prosecuted. I'm not sure if anybody went to jail, but I think a couple did. Acceptable Use Policy, or AUP, includes basics of protecting an organization's computers and network, managing passwords, managing software licenses, managing intellectual property, email etiquette, level of privacy an individual should expect when using an organization's computer or network, and non-compliance consequences. Privileged Level Access Agreement, or PAA, acknowledges the risk associated with elevated access in the event that credentials are breached or abused. It also asks user to promise to use access only for approved organization business. But that's no guarantee. People promise all the time the jail's full of them, but you still have to have that in place. And it asks users to promise not to attempt to hack or breach security. Good faith. Ask user to promise to protect any output from these credentials, such as reports, logs, files, and downloads. Security Awareness Policy, or SAP, informs workers of basic principles of information security, awareness of risk and threats, how to deal with unexpected risk, and how to report suspicious activity, incidents, and breaches. And lastly, how to help build a culture that is security and risk aware. Who requires security awareness training? All users do. You have to include everyone. Okay, anybody that can potentially touch your systems. Executive managers, program and functional managers, IT security program managers, auditors, and IT function management and operations personnel. Best practices for user domain policies. A best practice is a leading technique, methodology, or technology that through experience has proved to be reliable. Best practices tend to produce a consistent and quality result. The following short list of best practices focuses on the user and is found in security policies. These best practices go a long way toward protecting users and the organization. Policies should require the following practices. First, attachments. Never open an email attachment from a source that is not trusted or known. Encryption. Always encrypt sensitive data that leaves the confines of a secure server. Layered defense. Use an approach that establishes overlapping layers of security. Least privilege. Individuals should have only the access necessary to perform their responsibilities. Patch management. All network devices should have the latest security patches. Unique identity. All users must use unique credentials. And virus protection. Virus and malware prevention must be installed on every desktop and laptop computer. Understanding least access privileges and best fit access privileges. The difference between least access privileges and the best fit access privileges can be confusing and subtle. Both control risk by limiting access associated with a specific job or role. The difference is the least privileges customize access to the individual, whereas best fit privileges typically customize access to the group or class of users. For example, suppose you have 4 accounts receivable specialists. Accounts receivable teams typically collect on invoices due to a company. Of the 4 specialists, 2 work on commercial accounts and 2 work on individual accounts. Their access is the same, except that the commercial receivable specialists also require access to market information about the companies related to the commercial accounts. Under least privileges, you might choose to limit access to the market information to just the commercial receivable specialist. However, this decision comes at a cost. You would have to maintain 2 sets of access rules for basically the same job. Let's look at some case studies and examples. Public sector, NASA, huge technology entity, obviously. Laptop containing personal information on more than 10,000 employees was stolen. Violation of acceptable use policy as well as an inadequate security policy caused the problem. Then the next is the public sector, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, so same agency, undetected Raspberry Pi attack resulting in the theft of approximately 500 megabytes of data. That's 500 million characters basically. Lack of proper device management policies and or enforcement of such policies. Next is critical infrastructure, a Navy contractor. Chinese government-backed hackers stole a wide range of data, including anti-ship missile data and over 600 gigabytes of classified material. Data was stored on unclassified computers, thus data classification policies were not being followed. Pentagon's Inspector General's office began reviewing contractor cybersecurity issues, as well they should. In summary, we looked at the reasons for governing users with policies. We looked at how regular and privileged users, an acceptable use of policy, AUP, and privilege level access agreement, PAA. We also looked at security awareness policy, SAP, and differences between public and private domain policies. Thank you for listening to this PowerPoint.